Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. So in this video we are going to talk about the coding question which was asked in Wipro, and it is related to string manipulation. So we will be going into the question in a while. But before that, I would like to request you, if you haven't subscribed to our channel, make sure to subscribe so that you get high quality videos. And also I would like you to join our Telegram channel where you get the notifications first, and for each and every video which we release, you get the notifications for that so that you can be up with your preparation. And so let's now go to the question and look at what the question is actually. Now in my previous video, I have mentioned that these are the available languages in which you can code, and I would prefer Python, and for those who are going to prefer C++, I would go for C++14, and for Java you can go with version 7 or version 8. And let's go into the question right now. So what it says is we need to print all the permutations of a given string. Alright, so this is the input format and this is the output format. The input contains of a number t, which is the number of test cases, and following t number of test cases there will be t number of strings. So you have to output the permuted list of possible strings for each test case. Let's look at the sample input. So what a sample input says is we provide an integer t, in this case it's 3, and then we provide 3 different strings for which we have the sample output in the form given below. One thing which I would like to mention is that in these kind of questions there is a high chance that the IDE is completely blank, which is a good thing because you can write your own code and you can probably use libraries from Python or from Java if you want to use, like the collections in Java or the libraries from Python where you can use them to make your task easier. So let's look at how we will be doing that in our code. All right, so here the same question is written as you can see, and we have to print the output in the desired manner. So I will be writing the code in Python, and let's see how we can do it. Now there are different ways of doing the same question, so I would be teaching you two different approaches to do the same question. However, 90% of it is the same, but sometimes it reduces the lines of code which you are writing, so that is really helpful when the evaluation happens in terms of memory, in terms of lines of code, in terms of complexity. So in that case you might get ahead a little bit. So let's start by getting the sample input. So let's go with the naive approach. So I would say we have t, which is a number of test cases we are getting. So let's write int input, and t is the number of test cases which we will be receiving. So for t test cases, what we will be doing is writing a loop, and inside this loop, since we are getting the strings one by one, so we can write, say, string input, which is the variable which contains our string actually. So it will be input, and then what we will do is we have to print the output, which will be in the form of a list. But in a list, as we all know, that if we print the list there will be square brackets, which we can avoid by using a star at the beginning. So we know how to deal with that. So let's create a list of, say, answers, and in that list what we will print is the number of permutations for each string. So now, like, if we go for ABC, then ABC can be ACB, ABC can be BAC, BCA, and things like that. So all these permutations need to be stored and then it has to be printed. So let's write this line of code, and I will explain what this line of code actually does. So before explaining the line number 29 which I wrote, let me just import permutations from iter-tools. So let's write import permutations, and then they should work. Now what I have done is, for each string input which we are getting, we are calculating its number of permutations, and for each permutation, since each string has been treated like an individual letter, so like for ABC it will be treated like A, then B, then C. So what we need to do is, for each such permutations we need to join them. So this line basically evaluates each of the permutations of the individual strings, joins them, and then puts them in the list. So this is what we are doing right here. And then we just simply print our list. So let's try and see if this code works right now or not. So let's go with the sample input, and we have 3. Then we have ABC, which gives us the output, but it's not obviously in the desired manner because we have to make changes to it still. Then we have M and Z, this gives the output, and then we have ZXC, this again gives us the output. And to bring it in the desired format in which the question is asking it for, because if we give this output which we have right now, then we will surely get a wrong answer. So let's put a star right here, and then let's compile it again, and let's give the input. So as you can, oh, all right, for the third input we have ZX, so it obviously has 2 permutations only. So for say ZXC, then we will get the desired output as it has demanded in the question. Now one thing which I would like to clear is that in this code not much is happening, because we don't even need to provide things like a array or a list and then print them and then sort them. Things are not happening like that. So the point where you can get evaluated is the complexity and the lines of code which you are writing, obviously. So in that case, what you can do is I would write another approach for the same question while using the permutations library again, but in that case we will be reducing our lines of code. So let's comment this line of code, and let's shift it to the bottom, I would say, and let's clear our console here, and let's write the new line of code for which the number of lines will be less, but the code will be doing exactly the same thing. So what we will be doing is we will get an input for the number of test cases. So we write int input, and then what we will be doing is we will be using a while loop in our case. So let's write while t. Now one thing which you should always ensure is that anything which is executing inside of a while loop is, obviously it has to work, but one important factor which people forget is how to terminate your while loop. Now what I am doing in this case is that I am writing while t. Now what it means is that if the value of t is greater than 0, in that case it means true, and if the value of t becomes 0, it means false. So in terms of binary numbers, you know that 1 is true and 0 is false, and in that manner things are evaluated. So what you need to do is you have to ensure that before doing anything in your program, make sure to get a look at how your program is going to terminate, because things with while loop can get really bad, because your program can run into an infinite loop, and there are chances that your code might not work sometimes and you get a runtime error or you get a time limit exceed kind of an error. So let's write the code right now. So we know that our loop will only run up to t number of test cases. So what I can write here is that we have to decrement t every time we do an operation. So we write t minus equals to 1, which means t equals to t minus 1, because it's called as syntactic sugar. If you might not know, it's really beneficial. And since this will be happening at the very end of our while loop, we can safely write the code in line number 28 and further. But what I'm going to write is only a single line of code which will do everything, and you don't have to write the extra lines of code which we did in this case. So I would write print, and then since we are also printing a list in this case, so we are again concatenating it dot join, and in our case, let's say we are joining what? We are joining z. And what is z in our case? Z will be all those permutations in the string input. But you might wonder that we have not even taken our input, right? So what are we doing in this case? We are going to directly pass in the string input which we are taking inside of the permutations bracket which we have written there, or you might say the permutation function. So we are directly passing the string inside of our permutation function, and then we are decrementing this value right here. And one more thing which we have not even written here is that this will again give us an error. So you might pretty well guess it that what kind of error it will be, and it's pretty obvious from the lines of code which I have written now and the lines of code which I have already written here. So you can pretty well predict that. So let's try to give the input here. So we write 3, then we write ABC, then MNZ, and then ZXC. So you already know that the output which is up on the screen is not in the format requested here. So what we can do is simply put a star again right here, and then we can decrement it. So for reference purposes, let's just write everything which we are doing in this line of code again, so you have a pretty good idea about what we are exactly doing in these lines of code. So you know that this line has been written for importing the permutations library. So we are importing permutations here, and then in this line we are taking the input for t-test cases, and then we are running a while loop up to t greater than 0. Once t becomes 0, which means the while loop comes to a false state, because while loop runs on a boolean, which means any condition inside of a while should evaluate to true or false. So unless and until t is less than or equal to 0, this loop will run, which means that the condition evaluates to true. Alright, so I have written a wrong line here. So while t is greater than 0, this condition evaluates to true, and once t becomes equal to 0, this condition becomes false. So this loop will terminate once t becomes 0. However, this line is really important here, because if you don't terminate your while loops properly, this loop will run forever, and even after your output has been printed, your program does not terminate. So it still gives you an error even if your program gives the correct output. So your termination of the program is really important. So this is really important, which leads you to this condition right here. So what we are doing here, we are decrementing the value of t, and the most important line, which is the core of the program for which we are writing code, is this line. So I would give a small description about it here. What are we doing? We are getting the string input, then we are passing it to the permutation function. The permutation function obviously calculates the permutations for all those strings which we are getting. However, these permutations are not of the type which you might expect it to be. So what we are doing is we are passing it to the permutation function, and for each permutation which we get, what we are doing is joining each of them. So the line of code which says dot join z, let's write this part for z in permutations, and the other line of code which starts from here. So I would give a small description about what is happening right there. So every output which we are getting from the permutations library function after passing our string input will be of this format. So let's say it is a right here. Let's write it like this. So it will be a, then it will be b, and then it will be c. In a similar manner, we might get c, a, and b, which is wrong, because our program does not demand output in that particular format. So what we are doing in this line of code here is that for all these values which we are getting, that is these values, we are joining them, and since these all are each and every permuted values, so all the permuted values which are available in our list are getting concatenated into one and then getting stored into the list. So from that particular line of code, what we are trying to do is generate a list which will be of this type. So it will be, say, ABC, then it will be CAB. So in this manner, the list is getting generated, and then we are simply printing it for the output of the program, and that is how the program works. So this was the explanation for this particular code which we wrote here. And if we talk about this code right here, let's first uh, uncomment it out. So we can do one more thing in this case. We can reduce the number of line of code here by one. What you can do is remove this line here, and you can simply write for underscore, say for underscore in range, and you can directly pass the input into this line, which will again reduce the space complexity of a variable, since you're using a variable to keep your inputs. And in that case, the program will still run fine. And one more thing which we were doing here is that we were adding this particular line of code here, and we can simply remove this line here, and we can directly write input in this case. However, one more problem which we might encounter is that any kind of input can come up here. So they can be special symbols, they can be other things like that. However, one thing which Python ensures is that anything of the format which is getting typed in by the user is of the form string if we are using the input function. So we can convert it into any type of say float values, say string values, or say integer values. So that is one thing which Python does for sure for us, and that is a really good thing. So the line of code which we wrote previously has now been reduced to just 3 lines of code, which is pretty much everything which we need. So in that case, again, what you could have done is you could have written this line of code by erasing this, and you could have directly written print, and we put a star right here, and then just one more bracket, and we're done. So this is the number of lines of code which you need to actually write if you are willing to do coding in the smart way. And that is how you achieve the same answer which you were getting. However, you if we compare this part of code and then we compare this part of code, there is not much difference. However, you can again import this line of code. Then since you need this line of code anyways, in this case, let's just comment this line of code here and see what our program actually looks like right now. So we have imported the permutations library, then we are getting the input from the user for t number of test cases, and for t number of test cases we are going to print out the number of permutations available in the list which is getting formed after calculating the permutations for the required input, and then we are joining all the elements of the permutations into a concatenated string and then storing them in our list, which gets printed without the parenthesis and the commas and the brackets because of the star which we are adding right here. So that is the program which was asked, and it is just a 2 to 3 line of code which you actually need to write if you code the smart way. So thank you for watching this video. So if you did enjoy this video, make sure to subscribe to our channel and also join our Telegram channel, where we always release the videos first. You will get the notification once a video is released within the week. And for any kind of queries, you can always approach in our discussion groups as well. So all the links are mentioned in the description box below. You can go and check them out. Also, there has been a poll on the channel where we have asked a question that what kind of questions you would like to see. Will it be on stacks or queues or the ad hoc questions which require approach based solutions? So in our next video, we will be also talking about questions which were asked based on stacks, and we will implement them in the codes and try to optimize those codes as well, along with the explanations, just like we did in this video. So make sure to check them out as well. And once again, I would like to request you to subscribe to our channel and be the part of Ribox family. So thank you for watching this video. Keep learning and keep programming.